Captured. Marcus Chen woke to the familiar metallic taste of blood in his mouth and the ache of bruised ribs. The cell's harsh lighting pulsed in rhythm with his throbbing headache, casting blue-tinged shadows across the polished obsidian floor. 19 days since the disastrous first contact. 19 days since the Valkyrie Imperium had revealed their true intentions. Rise, human filth, a guttural voice commanded through the translator implant they'd forcibly embedded behind his ear. The Overseer wishes to see you. Marcus opened his eyes to find Carex, his least favorite guard, standing at the energy barrier of his cell. The Valkyrie's scaled skin shimmered with iridescent patterns that shifted with his mood, currently displaying the orange red of irritation or possibly hunger. With Valkyrie, it was often hard to tell the difference. Did she mention breakfast? Marcus asked, pushing himself upright. Your hospitality leaves something to be desired. The Valkyrie's neck frills expanded, a warning sign. Your species' obsession with regular feeding cycles amuses me. Perhaps we should study your digestive system more thoroughly. I'll pass, thanks, Marcus replied, standing slowly to minimize the pain in his ribs. Previous Valkyrie scientific curiosity is why Johnston is missing 3 fingers. Carex made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. Medical exploration. The Imperium must understand its new subjects. We're diplomats, not subjects, Marcus said, repeating the same argument he'd made countless times since their capture. The United Earth Coalition sent us to establish peaceful relations. Yet here you are. Carex activated a control on his wrist device, and the energy barrier flickered momentarily, creating an opening. Move. Marcus stepped through, knowing resistance would only earn him another beating. The Valkyrie stood nearly 7 feet tall, with a muscular build that made even Marcus, who'd spent years in the Coalition's Special Diplomatic Corps, feel small by comparison. The corridors of the detention facility were a maze of obsidian and metal, illuminated by the same pulsing blue light present in the cells. Other Valkyrie personnel moved purposefully through the halls, some wearing the distinctive armor of warriors, others the more streamlined uniforms of the administrative caste. None spared him a second glance. Humans were old news now, just another inferior species captured for the Imperium's benefit. Any word on the rest of my team? Marcus asked as they turned down a wider corridor. He'd been separated from the other 12 members of the diplomatic mission shortly after their shuttle had been forcibly docked with the Valkyrie vessel. What was supposed to be humanity's grand introduction to galactic society had instead become a nightmare of captivity. The ones still alive served the Imperium in various capacities. Carex replied indifferently. Some entertain our warriors in the arena. Others provide valuable scientific insights through experimentation. Marcus clenched his jaw, but kept walking. Anger wouldn't help him or the others. Information might. They passed through a final security checkpoint before entering a vast chamber unlike any Marcus had seen on the vessel. The ceiling soared at least 30 feet high, with massive viewports revealing the star-studded blackness of space. In the center of the room, a raised platform supported what could only be described as a throne, an intricate construction of metal and bone that seemed to grow from the floor itself. Upon it sat Overseer Malkira, Supreme Commander of the Valkyrie vessel. Her scales were a deep purple, almost black, with swirls of silver that caught the light as she moved. Unlike the males of her species, she possessed an elaborate crest that now flared slightly at their approach, a sign of attention, if not respect. The human diplomat, she said, her translator rendering her words with a melodic quality, absent from Carex's gruff speech. Approach. Marcus stepped forward, conscious of the guards that flanked the throne platform, their hands resting on weapons that could reduce him to atoms in seconds. Overseer, he acknowledged with a slight nod, enough to be polite without showing submission. I've requested this audience for weeks. My people will be looking for us. Malkira's vertical pupils narrowed. Your people do not concern me. Earth is primitive, isolated. By the time they realize what has happened, Your team will have long served its purpose. Which is what, exactly? We came in peace. Peace, she repeated, as though the word amused her. The galaxy does not operate on peace, human. It functions on strength, on dominance, on the natural order of superior beings commanding inferior ones. Another Valkyrie approached the throne, this one wearing the distinctive markings of the scientific caste. Overseer, the arena schedule requires your approval. The humans have drawn considerable interest among the crew. Humans fight well for such soft creatures, Valkyrie observed, her gaze never leaving Marcus. Your kind lacks physical advantages, yet you survived longer than expected. We're full of surprises, Marcus replied evenly. Yes, she agreed, studying him with unsettling intensity. That is precisely why you are valuable. The unexpected nature of human resistance provides excellent combat training for our warriors. The scientist extended a data tablet toward the overseer. The champion requests special permission regarding the next match. She wishes to face this one. Valkyrie's crest fully extended, a sign of intrigue. Does she? How interesting. Commander Soraka rarely concerns herself with individual specimens. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He'd heard the name whispered among the guards. Soraka, the undefeated arena champion, who'd personally killed 4 humans already. I'm a diplomat, not a fighter, he protested, though he knew from conversations with other prisoners that the distinction meant nothing to the Valkyrie. Valkyrie made a dismissive gesture. Your former occupation is irrelevant. Your current purpose is to serve the Imperium by testing our warriors' skills. She turned to the scientist. Grant Soraka's request. Schedule the match for the next cycle. The crew's morale could use the entertainment. Overseer, Marcus tried again. My government will pay handsomely for our safe return. We can establish trade, exchange technology. Silence, Carex growled, striking him across the back with enough force to drive him to his knees. Valkyrie rose from her throne, her movements fluid and predatory. She descended the steps until she stood directly before Marcus. Up close, he could see the intricate patterns within her scales, the alien intelligence in her eyes. You misunderstand your position, she said quietly. You are not here to negotiate. You are here to demonstrate that humans, like all lesser species, have their place in the natural order. She reached down with one clawed hand, gripping his chin and forcing him to meet her gaze. Commander Soraka will help you understand this truth before she ends your life. She released him and returned to her throne. Take him to the preparation chamber. If he is to face Soraka, he should at least provide a momentary challenge. Carex hauled Marcus to his feet. You've earned yourself a prestigious death, human. Many would envy your position. I'll remember to feel honored, Marcus muttered as he was led from the chamber. The preparation area turned out to be another cell, though larger than his previous accommodation and equipped with basic training facilities, a concession to ensure arena combatants provided adequate entertainment before their inevitable defeat. More surprisingly, he wasn't alone. 3 other humans occupied the space, each bearing the marks of recent combat. Well, look what the Valkyrie dragged in, a woman called from the corner where she was wrapping her hands with strips of cloth. If it isn't the diplomat himself. Captain Diaz, Marcus acknowledged, recognizing the leader of the security detail that had accompanied the diplomatic mission. Despite the cuts on her face and the way she favored her right leg, she still carried herself with military precision. Good to see you alive. Likewise, she replied, though her expression remained grim. Though I'm not sure alive is the status you want around here. Better a quick death than what they've put Harrison through. A thin man sitting against the far wall raised his hand in greeting, revealing a network of surgical scars crisscrossing his arm. Science Division's favorite test subject, he explained with a hollow laugh. They're particularly interested in human pain thresholds. The third occupant, a broad-shouldered man performing push-ups in the center of the room, didn't acknowledge Marcus's arrival. His back was a canvas of half-healed lacerations, arena souvenirs. That's Rivera, Diaz explained, noticing Marcus's gaze. He's survived 3 matches so far. Doesn't talk much anymore. What about the others? Marcus asked, dreading the answer. Johnston, Dr. Kim, Ambassador Williams. Diaz's expression hardened. Williams died in the initial capture. Johnston lost those fingers, then picked a fight with a guard. Intentionally, I think. Kim's in their research division, along with Patel. We haven't seen the others. Marcus slumped against the wall, the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. As the mission's cultural specialist and xenolinguist, he'd been the one to recommend accepting the Valkyrie's invitation to board their vessel. The signs had been there, subtle inconsistencies in their communication, their reluctance to meet on neutral ground. But he'd dismissed his concerns in favor of optimism. I'm sorry, he said inadequately. This is on me. Save it, Diaz replied, though without malice. The Valkyrie fooled all our censors and analysts. This was a planned trap, and we walked right into it. Harrison shifted uncomfortably. Word is they've been doing this for centuries, making contact with emerging spacefaring species, offering friendship, then capturing key representatives to study and exploit. To what end? Marcus asked. Empire building, Diaz answered. They identify potential threats before they become actual threats. Some species they subjugate, others they simply study and monitor. And which category do humans fall into? Rivera spoke for the first time, his voice a rough whisper. Neither. They think we're particularly entertaining in the arena, physically weaker than most species they encounter, but surprisingly resilient and adaptive. He finally looked up, revealing a face marked by a long scar that had barely missed his eye. They're making an example of us. The door slid open before Marcus could respond. A Valkyrie in scientific attire entered, flanked by 2 guards. Human designation Marcus Chen, the scientist announced, consulting a data tablet. You have been selected for special combat training in preparation for your arena debut. Lucky me, Marcus muttered. Indeed, the scientist agreed, missing the sarcasm. Commander Soraka has specifically requested you. This is unprecedented. She typically considers humans beneath her notice. Why me? The scientist's scales rippled with what might have been amusement. Your file indicates extensive diplomatic training in cross-species communication and cultural adaptation. The commander wishes to determine if this grants you any advantage in combat situations. He gestured to the guards. Come. We have 1 cycle to prepare you. Diaz caught Marcus's arm as he moved to follow. Soraka's their best, she whispered urgently. Undefeated in over 50 matches. She killed Ramirez in under a minute. Any advice? Marcus asked. She's fast, and she knows it. Overconfident. Likes to toy with opponents before finishing them. Diaz's grip tightened. If you see an opening, don't hesitate. In the arena, it's kill or be killed. I'm not a killer, Marcus replied. Rivera looked up again, his eyes haunted. You will be, or you'll be dead. The guards grew impatient, one of them prodding Marcus with the butt of his weapon. Move, human. As he was led away, Marcus glanced back at his fellow captives, Diaz with her military bearing, Harrison with his scientific curiosity, still intact despite his scars, Rivera with his survivor's 1,000-yard stare. Different backgrounds, different skills, but united now in captivity and the desperate hope of survival. If he was going to face this Soraka, he would need every scrap of information he could gather about Valkyrie physiology, combat techniques, and cultural values. His diplomatic training had taught him that knowledge was often the most powerful weapon, especially against an adversary who underestimated you. The Valkyrie had captured his body, but his mind remained free. And if there was one thing humans excelled at throughout their bloody history, it was turning the tables on overconfident oppressors. The training turned out to be less preparation and more assessment. For hours, Valkyrie scientists monitored his physical capabilities, strength, speed, endurance, reaction time. recording everything with clinical detachment. They seemed particularly interested in his problem-solving abilities, presenting him with various tactical scenarios and obstacles. "Your physical parameters are unremarkable by galactic standards," the lead scientist observed as Marcus completed a complex three-dimensional puzzle designed to test spatial reasoning. "Yet your adaptive thinking scores are unusually high." "Humans are full of contradictions," Marcus replied, carefully noting how the information seemed to surprise the scientist. Every reaction, every piece of data they recorded about him was also data he could use. "Indeed," the scientist agreed, making another notation. "Perhaps this explains your species' improbable survival of multiple extinction-level events during your evolution." The comment caught Marcus's attention. "You've studied Earth's history." "The Imperium studies all potential assets thoroughly," the scientist replied. "Your planet's unusual concentration of large predators and environmental extremes created selection pressures that produced interesting results." "We call it perseverance," Marcus said. The scientist's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue hue. "We call it statistical improbability." He set aside his tablet. "Enough assessment. You will now be briefed on arena protocols before returning to the holding cell." As Marcus was led through the complex corridors once more, he carefully memorized the layout, noting security checkpoints, personnel patterns, and potential weaknesses. The diplomatic course had trained him to observe and retain cultural and linguistic details, skills that now served a different purpose. When he was finally returned to the preparation cell, he found Diaz alone, Rivera and Harrison having been taken elsewhere. "How bad was it?" she asked, helping him to a sitting position on one of the sleeping platforms. "Educational," Marcus replied, then lowered his voice. "They're thorough in their assessments, but they make assumptions. They see us as primitive, physically inferior, but interesting test subjects." Diaz nodded, understanding immediately. "Their arrogance is a weakness." "One of several," Marcus confirmed. "Their scales change color with their emotional state, makes them terrible at hiding their reactions. And their peripheral vision is limited. They have to turn their whole head to see to the sides." "That explains a lot about their fighting style," Diaz murmured. Rivera noticed they always turn to face new threats, even when it exposes their flank. Marcus rubbed his sore muscles, mind racing with possibilities. "What about their physiology?" "Weaknesses. The neck frills are sensitive, connected to their respiratory system. Hit them there, and they struggle to breathe." She demonstrated a striking motion. "And the junction between their tail and spine. Some kind of nerve cluster. Rivera managed to temporarily paralyze one by targeting that area." They spent the next several hours exchanging observations and developing strategies, speaking in hushed tones to avoid the surveillance they assumed was present. Whatever the arena held for him tomorrow, Marcus was determined to use every scrap of knowledge at his disposal. As the lights dimmed to simulate night cycle, Diaz moved to her own sleeping platform. "Why do you think this Sareka requested you specifically?" she asked. Marcus had been pondering the same question. "I'm not sure. Maybe she's curious about humans with different skill sets. Or maybe..." "Maybe what?" "Maybe someone's been talking about the diplomatic team," he said slowly. "About our purpose here. The Valkyrie captured us before any real negotiation could begin, but our mission was to establish peaceful contact, create cultural understanding." Diaz scoffed. "Fat lot of good that's done us." "Maybe," Marcus agreed, staring up at the ceiling. "Or maybe understanding your enemy is exactly what we need right now." Sleep came fitfully, haunted by dreams of Earth, a planet that had no idea what fate had befallen its first interstellar diplomatic mission, and of an alien warrior he had yet to meet, but who had already decided his death would make good entertainment. Tomorrow he would enter the arena, facing an opponent who had never lost a match. The odds were overwhelmingly against him, but then, humanity had always thrived against the odds. His last thought before drifting into deeper sleep was of the Valkyrie scientist's words, statistical improbability. If humans were an evolutionary improbability, survivors against all odds, then perhaps his own survival would be just another data point in that improbable history. He certainly intended to make it so. Understanding the enemy, dawn aboard the Valkyrie vessel arrived as it always did, artificially, with the gradual brightening of the blue-tinged lights and the distant sound of changing guard rotations. Marcus had barely slept, his mind too occupied with cataloging everything he knew about the Valkyrie and formulating strategies for survival. Diaz was already awake, performing a series of careful stretches that favored her injured leg. "Arena Day," she said without preamble. "You ready?" "As I'll ever be," Marcus replied, sitting up and wincing at his stiff muscles. "Any last-minute advice?" "Don't die." A grim smile crossed her face. "And if you do, make it count." Before he could respond, the cell door slid open to reveal a Valkyrie Marcus hadn't seen before, smaller than most, with scales of an unusual grayish blue that lacked the iridescent quality common to others of the species. The newcomer wore the markings of the service caste, carrying what appeared to be food rations. "Sustenance before combat," the Valkyrie announced, setting down 2 containers of the nutrient paste that had become their staple diet in captivity. "The overseer has ordered enhanced portions to ensure peak performance." Marcus exchanged a glance with Diaz. This was unusual treatment. "The overseer's generosity is noted," he said carefully, studying the server's reactions. The Valkyrie's frills fluttered briefly, a sign of nervousness or agitation. Commander Sureka's matches attract significant attention. The overseer wishes for an adequate display. "Wouldn't want the entertainment to end too quickly," Diaz muttered, taking one of the containers. The server hesitated, glancing toward the corridor, as if checking for observers. "You faced Sureka in the Grand Arena," he said, voice lowered. "She has killed 17 opponents, 4 of them human." Marcus carefully maintained his expression. "You seem well informed about arena matters." "I serve the Warriors' Dining Hall. They speak freely around service caste." Another nervous flutter of frills. "Sureka boasts that no human lives longer than 1 minute in her presence." "Thanks for the vote of confidence," Marcus replied dryly. The server's vertical pupils dilated slightly. Not all Valkyrie approve of the arena system, or of Sureka's methods. He pushed the second container toward Marcus. "Eat. You will need strength." With that cryptic statement, the server departed, leaving Marcus and Diaz to exchange puzzled looks. "Was that help?" Diaz asked quietly. Marcus considered the interaction. "Maybe. Or bait. Either way, it confirms there are factions among the Valkyrie. That could be useful." They ate in silence, the nutrient pace as unappetizing as ever despite the larger portion. Marcus used the time to mentally review everything he'd learned about Valkyrie combat techniques from his fellow prisoners. Sureka would be stronger, faster, and better armed with her natural claws and armored scales. Conventional approaches would fail against such an opponent. Unconventional approaches, however, those were humanity's specialty. 2 hours later, Marcus stood in an antechamber adjacent to what the Valkyrie called the Grand Arena. He could hear the rumble of spectators beyond the massive doors, hundreds of voices creating a cacophony of anticipation. The guards had provided him with minimal protection, a light chestplate and bracers that seemed more ceremonial than functional, and a simple staff as his only weapon. A courtesy, the armor master had explained with what the translator rendered as amusement. "Commander Sureka prefers opponents to have some means of resistance. It extends the entertainment." Marcus tested the staff's weight and balance. Simple, but effective in trained hands, and his diplomatic training had included comprehensive self-defense courses. The Corps believed diplomats should be capable of protecting themselves in hostile situations, though he doubted they'd envisioned anything quite like his current predicament. A new Valkyrie entered the antechamber, tall, distinguished by elaborate markings on her armor that identified her as arena management. "Human Marcus Chen," she addressed him formally. You understand the protocol. You will enter when announced, proceed to the center circle, and await the combat signal. And if I refuse to participate? Marcus asked, more out of curiosity than hope. The official scales rippled with what might have been contempt. Then you will be executed immediately, without the honor of arena combat. The choice is yours. Just clarifying my options, Marcus replied, nodding toward the arena doors. How many spectators are out there? The grand arena seats 800, she answered, seemingly pleased by his interest. Commander Siraka's matches always draw capacity attendance. Many have placed substantial wagers on your survival time. What's the current betting line? Her frills fluttered in what he now recognized as amusement. The majority predict less than 40 seconds. Overseer Malkira herself has wagered on less than 30. And the longest prediction? 2 minutes, placed by a maintenance worker who will likely lose his monthly stipend. She activated a control on her wrist device. Prepare yourself. The introduction begins momentarily. As she departed, Marcus took a deep breath, centering himself the way his combat instructors had taught him. The physical odds were insurmountable, but battles weren't won on physical strength alone. Information, psychology, adaptability, these were the tools he would rely on. A resonating tone echoed through the antechamber, followed by the sound of the arena announcer's voice, amplified for the crowd. Esteemed crew of the Subjugator, honored guests, the arena management welcomes you to today's featured combat. The translator rendered the words with dramatic flair. By special request of our undefeated champion, we present a unique challenge match. The crowd's response was immediate and enthusiastic, representing the Valkyrie Imperium, with 17 consecutive victories, the pride of the warrior caste, Commander Siraka. The roar that followed suggested Siraka had entered the arena from the opposite side. Marcus tightened his grip on the staff, mentally rehearsing the strategies he'd developed. Facing her today, a representative of the newly discovered human species, captured during standard first contact protocols, the diplomat Marcus Chen. The massive doors before him slid open, revealing the arena in all its imposing glory. A circular battlefield of reddish sand stretched 50 meters across, surrounded by rising tiers of seating filled with Valkyrie spectators. Overhead, force field generators created a shimmering dome that would contain the combat and prevent any desperate attempts at escape. Marcus stepped forward, squinting slightly under the bright lights focused on the arena floor. Across the circle of sand stood his opponent. Commander Siraka was magnificent in her alienness, taller than the average Valkyrie, with scales of deep crimson accented by black markings that resembled war paint. Her crest was fully extended, displaying an intimidating array of spines that framed her predatory face. Unlike most Valkyrie, who wore at least some armor, she was clad only in a minimal combat harness that left her muscled limbs and armored torso largely exposed, a statement of supreme confidence in her natural defenses. As Marcus approached the center circle, her vertical pupils tracked him with predatory focus. Her claws, longer and more serrated than those of other Valkyrie he'd observed, flexed in anticipation. "The human diplomat," she said, her translator projecting the words loud enough for nearby spectators to hear. "I expected something more impressive from the way my subordinate spoke of your species." Marcus stopped at his designated position, standing straight and meeting her gaze directly, a deliberate choice, knowing that in Valkyrie culture, eye contact signaled challenge rather than respect. "Sorry to disappoint," he replied evenly. "If you prefer a more physically imposing opponent, I'm sure arrangements could be made." Her frills vibrated slightly, a reaction he hadn't observed before. "You jest before combat. Interesting. Your predecessors begged for mercy." Different diplomatic approaches for different situations. This earned another frill vibration and what might have been the Valkyrie equivalent of a sneer. Diplomacy, a concept invented by weak species to avoid facing their natural inferiors. "Yet here you are," Marcus observed, "talking instead of fighting. That's diplomacy, Commander." Before she could respond, The arena official stepped between them, raising an ornate staff. "Combatants, prepare yourselves. Victory is achieved through surrender or incapacitation, or death," Soraka added, her claws extending to their full, impressive length. "As the challenged party, the human may select combat distance," the official continued, following what appeared to be formal protocol. This was new information, and potentially useful. Marcus pretended to consider for a moment, though he'd already decided his approach. "Close combat," he declared, seeing surprise ripple across Soraka's scales. She clearly expected him to choose distance to compensate for his physical disadvantage. "As you wish," the official acknowledged, stepping back. "Combat begins at the signal." As the official retreated, Soraka's posture shifted subtly, her center of gravity lowering in preparation for a charge. "A foolish choice, human. Close combat is the domain of the Valkyrie." "We'll see," Marcus replied, adjusting his grip on the staff and settling into a defensive stance that deliberately left his right side seemingly exposed, an invitation to attack that particular vector. A high-pitched tone rang out across the arena. Combat had begun. Soraka moved with astonishing speed, exactly as Marcus had anticipated. Her predatory instincts locked onto the apparent weakness in his stance, driving her forward in a diagonal attack aimed at his exposed flank. But instead of attempting to block, which would have been futile against her superior strength, Marcus pivoted sharply, using the staff as a counterbalance to sidestep her charge completely. The maneuver was so unexpected that Soraka's momentum carried her past him, her claws slashing through empty air. The crowd's collective intake of breath was audible even over the background noise. Marcus didn't waste the momentary advantage. Before she could fully reorient, he swung the staff in a controlled arc, striking precisely at the junction where her tail met her spine, the nerve cluster Dias had identified. The impact wasn't powerful enough to cause lasting damage, but it achieved its purpose. Soraka's hindquarters momentarily seized up, throwing her off balance and forcing her to use her claws to arrest her stumble. Her scales flushed a deep orange, anger, surprise, or both. "First lesson in human diplomacy," Marcus called out, loud enough for nearby spectators to hear. "Always study your negotiating partner thoroughly." Soraka whirled to face him, her expression murderous. "A lucky evasion. It will not happen again." "Probably not," Marcus agreed, already circling to maintain distance. "I'll need different tactics for your next attack." This time, she approached more cautiously, her movements controlled and measured. She feinted left, then right, testing his responses while staying just beyond striking distance. Marcus matched her movements, maintaining the space between them while looking for patterns in her technique. The crowd had fallen strangely silent, the expected quick victory now replaced by an unexpected display of human agility and tactical awareness. "You've studied our combat methods," Soraka observed, still probing for weaknesses. "I've had 19 days of close observation," Marcus replied, using conversation to mask his own assessment of her movements. "Valkyrie warriors are exceptionally skilled, but somewhat predictable once you understand the underlying principles." Her frills flared, had struck a nerve. Predictable. The word was practically a hiss. "Evolutionary adaptation," Marcus continued, noting how her weight distribution changed as her anger grew. "Your species evolved as apex predators, with few natural threats. Your combat techniques reflect that. Aggressive, dominant, designed to overwhelm rather than outthink opponents. Your analysis will not save you," she snarled, suddenly lunging forward with both claws extended in a pincer movement designed to trap him. But again, Marcus had been watching for this exact pattern. Instead of retreating or trying to deflect, he dropped into a roll that took him directly beneath her extended reach, coming up behind her and striking another precise blow, this time to the base of her neck frills, where Dias had indicated a connection to the respiratory system. The impact produced an immediate reaction. Soraka gasped, her breathing momentarily compromised as her frills spasmed. She staggered, one knee touching the sand before she recovered and spun to face him, eyes wide with what could only be described as shock. 40 seconds had passed, and not only was Marcus still alive, he had landed 2 significant strikes. The arena erupted in a mixture of confused exclamations and excited chattering. This was clearly not the spectacle they had anticipated. Second lesson, Marcus called out, maintaining his defensive stance. Humans adapt. It's what we do best. Soraka's scales had shifted to a deep purple hue he hadn't observed before. Her breathing had normalized, but her approach had changed. Gone was the confident predator. In its place stood a warrior reassessing a suddenly dangerous opponent. Enough games, she growled, drawing a concealed blade from her harness, a violation of the weapons protocol that had limited Marcus to the staff. Your species' extinction begins with you. The blade gleamed under the arena lights, its edge serrated and lethal. Marcus adjusted his strategy accordingly. The staff would be no match for the blade in direct combat, which meant he needed to create an opportunity rather than wait for one. That seems unsporting, he commented, gesturing toward the weapon. The arena official specified we'd each have one weapon of choice. Official protocol applies to worthy opponents, Soraka replied, advancing with renewed confidence. You are merely prey that has temporarily evaded capture. Marcus began backing away, giving ground deliberately while scanning the arena floor for options. The sand was uniformly raked, offering no environmental advantages, but the arena walls featured decorative protrusions that might serve as improvised climbing holds. If I'm merely prey, he said, continuing to retreat, why request me specifically? There are stronger humans in your captivity. Warriors, soldiers. This caused her to pause momentarily. Your kind intrigues me, physically inferior, yet persistently troublesome. I wish to understand what makes a human diplomat different from a human warrior. And, have you learned anything useful? Her eyes narrowed. Only that all humans die the same way. She charged again, blade leading, using her superior reach to maximum advantage. Marcus deflected the first strike with his staff, the blade's edge biting deep into the wood, but not severing it completely. He twisted, using the momentary connection to pull Soraka slightly off balance, then released the staff entirely, leaving it entangled with her blade while he dove past her, rolling toward the arena wall. Soraka roared in frustration, ripping the staff free from her blade and snapping it in half with a powerful twist. But the maneuver had bought Marcus precious seconds, which he used to reach the wall and begin scaling the decorative protrusions with the quick efficiency of someone who'd spent